Thank you for your time, Daniel. How are you feeling today?
I feel pretty excited.
So today is a big step in the evolution of Spotify.
Curious and humble. That's exactly what Spotify is.
Saved the music industry after Napster and the piracy era killed the CD business.
Spotify, one of the biggest in the audio space. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yeah, you know, it's cool. Like, this is insane that I signed this deal.
Discover Weekly, every week you get a personalized playlist.
Wrapped in its inception, it was just a way to give back to Spotify users.
Hey Max, what's going on? I'm X, and from this moment on, I'm gonna be your own personal AI DJ on Spotify. Let's go.
How do you think? O sea, a modo de consejo, ya que lo estamos platicando, a diario.
We're really excited to be here today to talk about what we've been working on and bring it front and center to this audience.
Hi everyone, I'm here with Daniel Ek, co-founder and CEO of Spotify, a platform that has revolutionized how we've listened to music since its launch in 2008. Today, it's the world's largest audio streaming subscription service with over 500 million users. Today we're here for the Future of Audiobooks event, which we'll be, of course, discussing among a few other fascinating topics of the moment. Thank you for your time, Daniel. How are you feeling today?
Well, thanks for having me. I feel pretty excited. This has been a long time coming. I think we first started talking about this maybe 6 or 7 years ago. So it's pretty amazing to finally be at this moment in time now where we're able to show this to the world, and hopefully the world gets to see why we're so excited.
Yes, so as mentioned, we're here for an event about the future of audiobooks. Previously, users within certain markets were able to access audiobooks in the traditional sense, one by one, purchasing them.
Yep.
Now, Spotify Premium users are going to be able to access 15 hours free of listening each month. This seems like a major shift in the book market compared to how it's been in the past. It's comparative now to how we access all digital media today.
Right.
On the consumer end, that's awesome. On the creative end, I'm sure there's questions in the same way when the music industry was moving this way, how monetization will work if the industry is making this shift. So really just want to keep this question open-ended, what you want to get across about this audiobook launch.
Well, as you first and foremost said, what's exciting about this is that it's a first of its kind audiobook service that really means that consumers, all of our premium subscribers to begin with, UK and Australia, get the chance to experience 15 hours of listening of all audiobooks, with them the ability to top it up or buy books a la carte. But I think this gives a chance for people to rediscover audiobooks. I think a whole new generation will discover audiobooks and start listening to them, discover new audiobooks, perhaps by authors they wouldn't have otherwise dared to try, given that sort of initial hump of purchasing a book you may not even know the author of. So I think it will change the audiobook market, and I think the book market overall, and we're super excited about it. And then to the other side, yeah, this isn't something new. If you take it all the way back to the beginning of Spotify, so much of our entire existence has been about solving both the consumer and the creator problem of, on the consumer side, how do we reduce barriers for people to listen? How do we increase the amount of discovery that happens of a wider diversity of artists and creators? And then on the creator side is how do they grow their fan base? How do they engage with their fan base? And ultimately, how do they monetize that fan base too? And so that's not unique to us. We solved it in music. We are solving it in podcasting, and now we're moving to audiobooks. And I know our publisher partners, we've got pretty much all major publishers now on board and a library of over 100,000 titles. So I know they're very excited about it too, and they wouldn't have been if the economic model didn't make sense to them.
Some people have a chip on their shoulder when it comes to giving audiobooks a chance compared to physical books. Some people altogether might have not been diving into books these days when it comes to watching videos online, scrolling, or listening to just music and podcast. What would you say to convert them and give audiobooks a chance?
Well, I think that they perhaps are contrasting these mediums and saying you have to be in one pocket and not the other one. And I think what's so amazing about this, and just for myself, having been able to live and experience this experience that we're now bringing to consumers for quite a while, it hasn't stopped me from reading physical books. I'm still reading them. But because it's now available for streaming, it enables me to take the chance on new authors that I wouldn't have been able to try otherwise. And it's moments of during the day where I prefer an audiobook, and there are moments of the day where I prefer listening to a real or reading a real physical book as well. And so I think that these can live in symbiosis, similar to how the book industry, when you go back, when the Kindle came around and ebooks came around, everyone thought it would kill the physical books. But actually what happened is that they existed in symbiosis. And so I think bringing audiobooks to an even wider market will mean that all three of these formats can live in symbiosis. But in addition to that, there's going to be a whole new audience that probably will prefer audiobooks as the gateway in, and some of them will then convert into reading digital ebooks or physical books in addition to those audiobooks too.
Very true. You obviously have a lot on your hands when thinking about the future of Spotify, but whether it be end-of-year Spotify Wrapped, partnering with top podcasts, or the plethora of other things that have launched over the years, Spotify continues to push boundaries. When you think about this new endeavor, what feels most challenging to you? And in tandem with that, second, what just generally feels most challenging and competitive about the future?
I mean, if we start with the second one, competition is something that's near and dear to me. In fact, it's one of the big things that we're right now championing when it comes to making sure that all platforms, the big ones that we're talking about, the mobile operating systems, both the iOS and the Android ecosystem, remain open for competition so that we can see more developers thrive and thereby more innovation for consumers. So that's important to me, and I think that's the biggest threat, to be candid, to the entire app ecosystem and pretty much all innovation, is that these big tech companies that control so much of how people access the internet dictate the rules that go on there. So that's very much the challenge that's top of mind. But then specifically to audiobooks, the way we think about this is we think about the consumer and we think about the creator. So as we approach this, this is now a whole new stakeholder of creators, right? We are partnering now with publishers and authors alike, and we're getting to understand what their needs are. And what we've learned so far is that their needs are quite similar to the needs that musicians and podcasters have too. But of course, there are nuances. And that's the exciting thing for me too, is just to kind of better understand an entirely new industry with all of its quirks and things that have been built up. I was talking to one of the CEOs of major publishing houses just a week ago, and he pointed out, which rightly so, that this may be the oldest industry of all the media industries, because they had a book industry, in fact, around, I think it was like 1300s or something. So we certainly didn't have a video market back then, and even though people played music, we definitely didn't have a recorded music industry. But the book as a format has actually been around for maybe close to 1,000 years, which is pretty insane to imagine. So maybe the oldest media format. And so to be able to understand that and understand all the things that drove people to read, discover things, learn things, is obviously a whole new challenge that we're super excited about.
Earlier this year, your team launched the ability for users to have an AI DJ right in their pocket. More recently, people were captivated by your announcement about AI voice translation. This is going to allow podcasters to translate their podcasts in alternative languages, but not only that, it's going to be in the podcaster's actual voice. When you think about artificial intelligence, considering all the possibilities within that market, how are you choosing what to pursue?
When we look at a problem, we look at consumers and we look at creators. So if you want to know what Spotify is going to prioritize, it's basically what are great consumer needs and what are great creator needs, and preferably when those two interact with each other, and it's kind of two sides of the same coin. So if you think about the biggest consumer need is help me find more great content. And the biggest creator need is help me connect with an audience, right? That is near and dear to us. That's very much a big problem for both groups. That would make a perfect candidate if we thought we could improve something there. So if you think about something like the voice translation part, it is really geared towards two things. It will both broaden the catalog, especially the non-English language catalog. So if you're a Spanish consumer, you will now hopefully, with more and more creators taking that opportunity to translate those podcasts to Spanish and French and all the other languages, that means that you have the ability to reach an entirely new audience. And the flip side is, as a consumer, you'll have the ability to have more great content that you will understand, and you'll feel like the Spotify experience becomes all the better. And so that's a great way of how we think about almost any product involvement. And then AI, and just like mobile used to be the big thing back in the day, it's just another tool in the toolbox. It's a super important technology that enables a lot of other product development things. But that's really it for us. The number one thing is to keep in mind is that we're here to serve consumers and we're here to serve creators.
There are a lot of consumers playing around with generative AI, specifically within music, often without the artist's consent. Rightfully so, a lot of artists are unsettled by this because they lose a sense of their identity, being able to control the narrative, and of course there are questions then when it comes to monetization. On the other end, some artists are really leaning into it and taking a more explorative approach. The shift in music and really all media forms is a wild one, and there's no one person like you sitting here that has all the answers. But of course, Spotify plays a huge role in this future in setting a tone. I really respect your recent interview with the BBC where you said it doesn't make sense to ban AI music outright. That would be like banning digital tools and platforms for music. It just doesn't make sense. How are you currently thinking about approaching these less bright-eyed sides of AI?
It recenters around these things. Who are we for? Who are the stakeholders? Our goal is, we're not saying, hey, what's good for consumers and bad for creators is okay. We're trying to find the win-win. And ultimately, I started this company because I really respect these amazing creators that we have out there in the world. So their voice means a lot to me. And any powerful technology in the world can be used for both good and for bad. And so it's obviously our job to try to look for how can we let as much innovation as possible happen on our platform. Because again, this technology can be used from someone that don't, for instance, even know how to make music to all of a sudden make something that sounds professionally created, or someone who's not great at singing but has an idea for a song to be able to express that with an amazing vocal track. So I think it has a lot of power and potential, but as you say, there's also a lot of bad avenues, and I think the most important one is the one where it is taking the artist identity and voice in the name and likeness, basically, of the artist without the approval of that individual. And you can just think about it from your own vantage point. Imagine if someone walked around claiming to be you, saying things that you've never said, and you would probably not feel great about that. So that's an easy one for us, which we won't allow. But then, as you say, if the artists allow it, like someone like Grimes, who's leaning into it, that's awesome, that's super cool. Of course, we will let her experiment because she's fine with it. But for us, it really comes down to, rather than a black or white, finding that avenue where it's the artists that are in control of their work and their identity. And then consumers, of course, want to have access to as much as possible of it. But how do we enable it so that this helps artists and don't hurt artists? That's the important part for me.
For sure. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. For those within the certain markets where it's launched, go choose an audiobook to listen to, and let's have a great time at the event. Thank you.
Thank you.
So today is a big step in the evolution of Spotify.
In 2008, Spotify started a revolution.
Many people in the music industry wondered if there would even be a music industry going forward. And there was one dominant music platform in the world, and then there was music piracy. Much like music, podcasting had one big dominant player that had been the dominating player for 15 years. And it was really a stagnant ecosystem. And just like in music and podcasting, audiobooks today has one big dominating player. And just like in music and podcasting, we believe that many more consumers want to consume audiobooks and want to listen to audiobooks.
Anything that we can do to save writing and literature and reading and books and the printed word, and to share it with as many people as humanly possible.
If we just make it easier to discover, listen, and share audiobooks, then we believe more people will enjoy them, especially if they don't have to switch apps and buy into a new service.
I have the great honor of leading our audiobooks business. Our rollout in the UK and Australia, and soon the United States, means tens of millions of people will be able to listen to audiobooks just by pressing play.
As a Spotify Premium member, you will get access to listen to 15 hours of audiobooks listening from a library of more than 150,000 titles. So the more people listen to podcasts, the more music grew. And the more people listen to music, the more podcasting grew as well. We believe that many more consumers want to consume audiobooks and want to listen to audiobooks. We're really excited to be able to bring all the amazing tools that we built for creators and consumers alike to enable more discovery of these amazing audiobooks to the entire world. Thank you all so much.